I'm Dan Shaw-Bell, Managing Partner of Workplace Intelligence, and in this series, I talk to leaders about their perspective on hybrid work. My guest today is Lucy Suros, the CEO of Articulate, a company that builds creator platforms for online trading and is one of the first, if not the first, fully remote companies in America. Lucy, it's great to have you here.
It's wonderful to be here with you, Dan.
Why did Articulate originally decide to be a fully remote company back in 2002, and how has that decision impacted hiring and retention since?
Yeah, so like many companies today who were sort of forced to go remote, Articulate became remote out of necessity. Our CEO and founder at the time, Adam Schwartz, he started Articulate with his entire life savings at the time out of a apartment basically in New York City. And he realized that to create this first online training platform, that he needed two experts. And one of them lived in India and the other one lived in Missouri and he lived in New York. This is before Skype. This is, using the phone, if you've ever heard of those things. And they quickly were able to build this first software application using phone calls, using email, using even fax machines. And what he realized was that as he scaled the company, obviously being bootstrapped, he didn't have a lot of that extra cash hanging around, that it was not only cost effective, but actually put the emphasis where it should be, which is on what are you producing? It's not just what are you doing activity wise, but what is your work product? And he found that was a really, really great way to have this company work, is that having that focus on productivity. The other thing he noticed was the people who were really attracted to remote work at the time are self-starters, they're self-motivated, they really care about what they're producing. So it's kind of a self-reinforcing wheel, and really has been the foundation of why today, we've been fully remote since our founding for nearly 20 years. We have over 330 people. We're serving all of the Fortune 100 customers, plus more than 100,000 other businesses. And we're doing it in a way that delights our customers. And so we know that this is a way that you can build businesses, scale businesses, and get really amazing people to boot.
Yeah, and what we noticed over the past year is that, a lot of people were questioning if remote work was going to work because there's a
Yeah.
stigma behind the remote worker. And it did. The experiment was successful. Productivity increased. But again, I think that in some ways we've become more human using this technology, even though there's decentralization and separation between us. Can you describe what you mean by human-centered organization and how workers, customers, and the company benefits from it?
Yes. So I am extremely passionate about this. I can talk about this forever. I actually have a master's degree in ethics, and that sort of informs sort of how I look at the world. And, some of the questions that interest me are, why are we all here? What are we supposed to be doing here? And how do we grow while we're here? How do we create environments where other people can grow? And I always tell folks that Articulate, what we're trying to do is build our own brighter quarter of the universe. And what that means is recognizing that companies are just collections of people and our customers are people. So we really center that question, what do we need to do to help our people flourish? What do we need to do to help our customers flourish? And that really changes the way that you do business. A lot of companies are, chasing that next quarter. And while we are highly productive, highly successful, the reason we are is because we put our people first. We really understand, what it is that makes people take what they really need. We really see people, and that has them going the extra mile. And our customers, likewise, they see when they interact with us that we really care what they are doing, what they're trying to produce, what we offer to them. We put millions of dollars into our community, for example, that has over 1 million people now. It's all free stuff that they just can use to help them do their jobs better. So being a human-centered organization is really understanding at sort of a philosophical level and operationally, how do you put those structures into place that are helping your people flourish as human beings, not just as workers in your machine, but what do they need as human beings? How do you see them and support them?
Yeah, what are some of the obstacles that you originally had when you first started working at the company that you need to get around because you're not getting the face time that people would be if they were in a physical office. So how do you build the human-centered organization, understand the needs of the people, and connect with them and prioritize them if you're not in a physical space? What are the hurdles, and how do you overcome them?
Yeah, so I think one of the things that's really important to do when you're having a human-centered organization that is remote is that you really think really carefully about what are those tools and technologies you use to communicate, to collaborate, and putting a lot of emphasis on making sure everyone has a lot of clarity around that. So for us, I was talking about our founder where he was originally using, fax machines and phone calls. Eventually that moved to Skype. Eventually that moved to Google Hangouts for a while. Then that moved to Zoom and Slack. But we have put into those processes ways for folks to communicate and collaborate and made it very clear what channels you should be doing what in and how that work all happens online. The other thing we do is we have, I think, over 500 Slack channels, and many of them
Wow.
are social channels. And a lot of those are just, here's how people connect socially. So we do a lot of stuff on Slack where people can connect socially. We do a lot of things, on Slack, on Zoom. We'll have Hangouts on Zoom where you can come in and have a cocktail hour or play loteria, and so we have a lot of different activities that keep people connected as humans, just in the way that we work. We sort of imbue that in the DNA of the way that we do things here.
Yeah, that's really smart, Lucy, especially because having the policies and procedures in place creates the right behaviors, and then fewer people are going to question, oh, what technology do I need to use, or how do I find this resource, because it's all documented and in front of them. So it must make onboarding a little bit more efficient, wouldn't you say? What in terms of onboarding employees, what are some of the things that you think that you do different that make it easy to onboard a remote worker?
Yeah, well, I will tell you, we have gotten feedback on our onboarding that is people are really blown away by the way that we onboard folks, and say this is the best onboarding I've ever received at any company, whether you're in person or remote, anywhere. And we've been really, really intentional about it. We do a 3 day, we call it ramp camp, where folks can they get on and they do, it's a combination of Zoom meetings, it's a combination of taking our Rise courses, which are in our Rise platform, where they're learning, how they're hearing directly from other folks. They all go through cohorts together on coming into the company, and they're hearing, how do we work? What tools do we use? They get really deeper understanding of what it means to be a human-centered organization and how they're being expected to show up. And then they have, Trello boards where, we map out every single week. Here are the Rise courses you should take to really imbue this knowledge. Here are the people that you should talk to over Zoom. Here are the things that you need to understand, and here are the tools and how to use them. So it's very structured. And I think that when you're remote, it's actually a great opportunity to think about things intentionally, like how you communicate, how you collaborate, that if you're in person, you might not be as intentional about it. It just sort of happens. And you assume, hey, someone's sitting in that chair over there, they must be working. You don't really know. Do they know how they're supposed to communicate? Do they know how they're supposed to work? And so we got really intentional about how we onboard, and we did that through design thinking. So it's really important for us that the people who are going to be experiencing a process actually have a say in how that process looks. So we got so much feedback, and then the folks then actually did design that whole onboarding themselves. Like, here, the different groups cross-functionally got together and said, okay, this is going to be the best experience for the people. We'll measure it, and we'll feed that back into, okay, take two, how else do we iterate? But so far, we just launched this new onboarding in March, and it's just been absolutely phenomenal.
That's great to hear. And one of the most consistent words I've heard this year, as people, have been working remote for over a year, and of course your company has done it for much longer, so you understand this, is this idea of being intentional, having purpose behind action, like not just having a meeting to have it.
Yeah.
not just contacting people for the sake of it. It's like a little bit more structured and thoughtful in terms of those behaviors and getting work done.
Yeah.
And I think that's going to be a huge part of the future and a big lesson learned over the past 1 to 2 years. When hiring, you say that you're looking for trustworthy, thoughtful doers. Why is trust and thoughtfulness so important when hiring?
Yeah. So I think here I'll start with a story on how we came to those words. So we, many years ago, we said we were on the precipice of really just hitting this a huge moment of scaling, and we knew we were going to be hiring a lot of people. We knew that we wanted people who were really be successful at the organization. So we took a look at, who are our star performers in the company, and these are people from all different walks of life. They're all different departments, all different roles, all different levels. And we looked at them and said, what are the commonalities between all of these folks? And what we discovered that even though these are so different, these folks, that the folks that really flourished the most and really embodied what that we care about as an organization in delivering to each other and to our customers was they were all thoughtful. And then let me explain. I'm going to just break down each of these terms a little bit because people can think different things about what they mean. So thoughtful. So you're thoughtful in the way that you look at a problem or a challenge. So you have something before you, you actually take the time, take a beat, think it through, use your analytical skills, get feedback from other folks. So you're thoughtful in the way you approach any sort of job responsibility that you have in front of you. But you're also thoughtful as a human. You actually care about other human beings. You're thoughtful about the way that you communicate and the impact you're having on other people. So there's that sort of thoughtfulness. Is I care that it's your birthday today. I care that something just happened hard in your life. So that is what we mean by thoughtful. Both of those meanings are very important. Trustworthy. Again, trustworthiness in a remote environment or a hybrid environment is absolutely critical. So again, that has two meanings. So trustworthy in, I know that you're going to do the piece of your job that I need you to do so that I can do my job, so that together, and we all win together is cornerstone of what Articulate is all about, is we win together recognition that we're all connected. We all need to work together to move the ball forward. So trustworthy is, I trust you, you're going to hold up your piece of the bargain. You are going to deliver. And so that I can also deliver. And trustworthy also means I can trust you with my whole being. I can trust you with my heart. I can be vulnerable as a human and real as a human. And you're going to hold that. And you're going to be kind and you're going to be caring. So trustworthy also means that. And then doers, again, people sometimes think doing is, I spent so many times at my chair today, but doing actually means you're doing things that have meaning and purpose and are aligned with the company's objectives. So you're doing work that actually matters. So trustworthy, thoughtful doers for us is really what we know works. And the more people we have in the organization that are aligned with that, the better the organization performs overall. So that might not be the same for every organization. So my advice to leaders, though, especially as you're moving into this new world, is, reverse engineer. Like, what do you need to hire for? Look at who have been your star performers over the last 18 months and what are those commonalities between them, and then hire for them. We hire on these attributes, we fire on these attributes, we cultivate these attributes through our training. And so you really need to take a step back and really be thoughtful about, what are those things that are going to help your workers succeed, and then and really be clear about that. Everybody in our organization can tell you we hire trustworthy, thoughtful doers. That's cornerstone. So I would say, take the time, understand what those things are, and really execute on them from a hiring and retention standpoint.
That was really well explained. The way I think of remote work, especially, is it's a window into someone's personal life. And if you compare and contrast office life versus remote work life, office life, maybe you swing by their cubicle and you see a picture of them with their wife or husband, per se, right? Or some, something that represents
Partner,
them.
children, whatever
Exactly.
that looks
Like,
like.
if they're, like action figures, maybe they have that and that's part of their personality. The difference though with remote work is you really have a window into someone's personal life because their office is probably could be in their bedroom or like next to their significant other. Their kid might be in the room for part of the Zoom call, and so I think that you see things that you would never see in an office in a unique way. And that's why I like how you emphasize this level of like empathy and care and thoughtfulness, not just in terms of getting work done and operating, within an office culture, but also when it comes to connecting with your colleagues, because
Yeah.
people are going through their own things, and you're seeing it more visibly than you would see in an actual physical office.
Yeah, and I mean, I truly believe just at a fundamental level that when you really actually see people as whole humans and they're able to bring their full selves to work, it might sound mushy, but it's actually going to drive your business benefits. When people feel seen and when they feel they can be their whole selves at work, they're not spending any energy hiding pieces of themselves. What they're doing is spending all of their energy growing and flourishing in human beings in the work that they're doing. So really, this has a business benefit. The business benefit is you're getting the most out of your people. They're growing. They're doing things that you never thought they would be able to do because they are seen and held at work by their coworkers, by their leadership. So, companies that really put this focus back on their humans, they are going to see that this is going to drive real business benefits. And if you're not doing that, you're really missing the mark. It's really, really a secret sauce, really, is to really create an environment, a human-centered environment where you're paying attention to how people interact. You're paying attention to the kind of people that you bring and how you help them grow. Like we all have so much in us that is just waiting to blossom. And if you create the right environment, you're getting that blossoming, and it's doing the work that you need folks to do. So it's super important.
And how do you celebrate the employees that are displaying these behaviors and sharing and displaying those values as well?
Yeah. So the analogy I have here is really thinking about team sports, which all my friends will laugh at because I'm not really a sports player. But anyway, team sports are a great analogy for this. You don't like bring together your team once a year and you say, hey, good job 5 months ago. You did a great job on that thing. Or, hey, you know what? You might have tweaked that thing 4 months ago. It's too late at that point. What you really want to do is like a team where they're coming off the field, you're high-fiving them, you're saying, great job. Hey, like next time, look for so-and-so. They were wide open, you have this sort of constant conversation around recognition, around feedback, built into your culture. So for us, for example, it looks like every week I do updates to the organization. Sometimes these are in videos, sometimes they're in text. And I ask my leadership team and they ask their teams, like, who has gone the extra mile? Who has embodied these attributes? What teams? A lot of times it's an emphasis on teams because, again, anything we do requires more than two people usually. Who do we recognize? So I recognize those people in my updates. We have a Slack channel that's literally called props, and people are constantly high-fiving each other there. We use 15.5 for kind of tactical updates where they have a feature that you can give someone a high five. Or you just tag, in your update, hey, I did this today, and shout out to, X, Y, and Z who helped me really and that's visible. And so their managers, they're seeing it, anyone who has access sees it, they can make a high five public. So the point is here, though, is that you're not thinking this as, hey, annual review, recognize someone. It is constant conversation and feedback to the organization, to people in your organization, and this setting this expectation from the top down as leader setting this, we expect you to recognize other people who've helped you on projects and products and whatnot. We are modeling this, and we're also building this sort of all these channels into the way that we communicate and operate that facilitate this. So that's what leaders really need to think about is, what systems, what processes, what tone are you setting so that you are more like a team sport where people are constantly getting this. And it's a self-breeding system too. The more people sort of recognize and share the love, we all want to be seen. Words of recognition are a love language. Make sure that you're really imbuing that in the way that you operate and setting that expectation for the company, modeling that. And people will do what you don't even expect. Like they will lean in a way that you can't even imagine when they feel like they're seen and heard.
Makes sense. And people hate annual performance reviews, and they dread it when it's like a month away
Yeah.
from them. And
Yeah.
so I think this idea, and I know Adobe and GE have also kind of pioneered this approach of like check-ins and making
Yeah.
sure, but it's especially true, like you're saying, being intentional and doing it more often because you're not seeing them in person. So you need to kind of extend yourself with purpose more. You're a training company. I'm very curious, like what are the obstacles to training and developing remote workers?
Yeah.
And what are you and your clients doing to solve that and overcome it?
Yeah. So training is really like one of the last kind of analog functions in many organizations, right? So pre-pandemic and even during the pandemic, companies, training meant you have someone standing in front of a PowerPoint and you've got folks you brought into the room and, flying from all over the place. And it's pretty passive. Like if you're lucky, you get like a workshopping kind of element to it. And then, a lot of companies just kind of took that into online by doing it over Zoom, but it's that same model. It's pretty passive. It's not really engaging. It's not scalable at all. So our best in class companies and our customers, what they're doing is really using this opportunity to rethink their training programs. And how do you build training online? And how do you build a culture of learning? And what you really need to do is democratize your training development. So you need to really see and understand. And I think people do with this great resignation when they're seeing like knowledge walk out the door, is that everyone has something to say. Everyone has something worth saying and worth listening to. So what you want to do is you want to democratize training development so that folks can share what they know. And the other thing is you want to do it in a way that's recognizing the whole human. So you want your people to have this growth mindset, this learning culture that is really, again, self-perpetuating. So give them the technology tools so that they can easily create training and do that in a way that's in a format designed for online training. Do that in a way that this training is fun to create. It's really enjoyable to take. It's engaging. And when you do that, you're fostering that growth mindset and you're getting the power of all the thinking, all the knowledge in your organization out, and retaining it for one thing when they walk out the door, but also, it really, by the way, teaching is a great way to learn. So if you sort of know something and you teach it, you're really going to know something. So you really want to make sure that you're creating an environment and supporting that with the technology tools so anybody in your organization can share what they know.
100%. It's about creating that culture where people are learning and sharing.
Yep.
In my book, I say, practice shared learning is chapter 3. And it's like, if you're getting into this environment, then people are just naturally going to help other people or point them to different resources and training curriculum. And that can really be helpful for everyone. Speaking of the remote workplace, what do you do to measure the health of your remote work environment?
Yeah, so we do several things. One, we do an annual engagement survey, which really takes a pulse of how people are feeling and doing. And we use that to develop our roadmap for the next year. So where are we doing really well? Where do we need to shift? It's been really instrumental in developing our roadmap just for kind of people development. We also look at Glassdoor. What are people in an anonymous environment? Our annual survey is anonymous, but I think there's some sort of extra level of anonymity in Glassdoor that helps them even say that more. And, we have a great, 97% of at Articulate say it's a great place to work. We have a CEO rating of 99%. So that tells us, okay, we're doing something right. But I really think that the most important thing is for me, just the kind of inbound messages I receive from folks, both for, hey, can we do this differently? But also, Hey, I just had an employee literally last week who's been here for 5 years. I mean, that's a long time. They know us ins and outs and everything. And she just pinged me saying, I still pinch myself every day when I come to work that I get to work at Articulate. This is such an amazing place. Like my friends and family don't believe it. And to me, that says we're doing something right.
Yeah, and they bring it to life, those personal anecdotes and those emails that you get. It's not
Yeah.
just a survey metric. It's someone saying, hey,
Yep.
after 5 years, this company means a lot to me, meaning like you're doing a lot of things right to build trust and all the right behaviors
Yeah.
and environment and culture that promote that.
Yeah.
What would you recommend to companies? Because a lot of companies are embarking on remote work and hybrid work as we move forward in society and business culture worldwide. What do you recommend to them as they engage and promote and create policies around remote working or hybrid working?
Yeah, so I would say I would recommend thinking about being remote first. So even if you're hybrid, you want to organize your operations as if you were remote. For one thing, this is an unpredictable world, right? The pandemic sent you into remote work and you weren't ready, most companies. So think about how do you structure your operations, your communications, your collaborations so that you are remote, so that that in a hybrid environment you don't have this unequal playing field where you've got the three people around a conference table, one person who's at home, and you're not on an equal playing field. You want to make sure that that person at home is in a Zoom meeting with the people who are in office from their own cubicles, their own offices, so that everyone has an equal say, equal access. You then use your in-person time for getting to know each other and for having that collaboration that's more human, that's more just like, hey, I need a hug today. And so that would be my advice, to really understand that remote is here to stay. Some of your best people are going to be people who are self-starters. They're self-motivated. They want to work remote. You're going to lose talent if you don't really understand that some people are going to want to work remotely at least part of the time. They're going to walk. So create an environment where you are really helping those folks flourish, for everyone flourish in that hybrid environment, because I really do believe that it's here to stay.
I agree too. I think people at the highest level want flexibility. Remote work being part of flexibility. More for hourly workers, they want schedule flexibility. So I think flexibility is, I mean, I've talked about this for like over a decade. You've lived through this, of course.
Yeah.
Flexibility as a whole is going to stay and rise in importance, and remote work is a huge part of that, especially for knowledge workers that are able to do it. But I'm curious about the future. Like, what do you think the future is for remote and hybrid work?
Yeah, I do think the future is here to stay. I think that humans are the center of your organization. They are, and what they are telling us loud and clear, over and over again, like I said, is that they want that. They don't want to commute 2 hours to work. They want that time back. They want to live more balanced lives. I mean, I've been talking to leaders, and they are just flabbergasted by how by people wanting to work remotely. They're also flabbergasted that, by the way, that Articulate has done this for nearly 20 years. I mean, before the pandemic, people couldn't believe it that we were so successful from both a business perspective and a human perspective to be fully remote. So I really think hybrid is here to stay, and the most competitive companies are going to be those companies who really take that seriously, who say, I'm waiting for the world to quote unquote return to normal. We are in a new normal, and that new normal is hybrid and remote work. And so you have to really think intentionally about how you really embed your operations, communications, the way you do business in such a way that those humans can flourish in that environment. So that's a real orientation. The time is now to do that, to stay competitive in this tight market, but also just stay competitive, because I do think you're going to have those self-motivated, workers that are highly productive, in your company, and those are the ones you want running the business forward.
I think people experience over the past few years what was possible with remote and partially hybrid work, and they liked it. And
Yeah.
therefore, I think that that's what they're going to be looking for in their current company and future companies in terms of their employment decisions. And therefore, it's going to stay. And we're already witnessing a lot of companies taking a stand on this, remote first, like a Dropbox. But you're also seeing some companies, especially in the financial service sector in New York, Goldman Sachs and Morgan Stanley, that says full-time at office. So I'm
Yeah.
going to be curious as we proceed into the next year, how is that going to affect hiring and retention? Or are those companies just going to get the specific type of person that is okay with it in exchange for just getting paid hundreds of thousands of dollars?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I think it's going to be really interesting to see because I do think that there's some part of being human that we want to have this balance. We want to have that our time back. We want to have an environment where we're really flourishing, where we can put our heads down and really concentrate because we have the environment around us that feels good. We don't have the interruptions. So it will be interesting to see. But my prediction is that most are going to go to hybrid or remote.
Yeah, absolutely. Me too. We've done a lot of research on this. It's like, 50 to 70% agree with you
Yeah.
worldwide. And so I think that is the mainstay. And so I really appreciate you sharing your perspectives, Lucy.
Yes, it's been wonderful to be here, Dan. Thank you.